I'm just afraid that we really was not able to do that proper preparation.
DOTR Secretary Arthur Tugade said that they will focus on increasing capacity for public transportation now that PUVs are allowed to operate at 100% capacity.
Passenger cap in NAIA will be gradually increased until it returns to the pre-pandemic level.
Meanwhile, Education Secretary Leonor Briones is eyeing to reduce protocols for face-to-face classes.
Ang gusto lang namin ay kung pwede na i-reduce na yung mga protocols kasi we have 2 pages of protocols na dapat susundin ng mga eskwelahan.
Government is urging workers and employees to go back to their workplaces to stimulate spending and help the economy recover, as establishments are also back in operation at full capacity. How will the country rebound faster from this pandemic? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. Tonight, we start with the shift to Alert Level 1 of NCR and other areas of the country with Mr. Eric Teng, the President of Resto PH, the Association of Restaurant Owners, and later, economist Professor Emmanuel Leco and DTI Undersecretary Irenea Vismonte will join us to talk about how these small businesses are expected to benefit from relaxed restrictions. Stay tuned for all of these when we return. Welcome to the Chiefs. I'm Robbie Alampay. With us online, Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star, Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5, and Ed Lingao of One News. Chiefs, happy March! 1, March na!
Yes! The first day of bilis ng oras.
Oo nga.
Grabe.
And
Alert Level 1.
Exactly.
Unang tao. Kahit
Traffic na, no? Traffic na.
Lalo yan next week. Ngayon medyo ano pa yan, medyo dahan-dahan pa yan ngayon kasi Tuesday. Pero come Monday sigurado yan, naku, rumble yan.
At saka, coding. They're now talking about expanding the coding beyond the 5 to 8 p.m. Window. So, ingat-ingat po. Baka nakalimutan nyo na yung plate number nyo.
At saka, magkikita-kita na tayo ulit.
Talaga?
Face to face.
Papasok na kayo dito?
I think so.
Nako, ayan na.
Ilang buwan na kami nagkikita.
Sorry, ako lang pala yun.
Sige. Baka naman tayo, magkita naman tayo sa restaurant minsan.
Oo naman.
Para maraming happy birthday na hahabulin.
Oo nga. Oo, madami
Sige.
na.
Sige. Kaya ipasok natin. Hindi mo napansin segue yun. Segue yun.
Restaurant.
Joining us is Resto PH President Eric Teng. Good evening and welcome back, sir.
Hello, sir.
Good evening.
Welcome back. You must be happy about Alert Level 1, no?
Oh,
Tell
yeah.
us about how joyful you are.
Yeah, I was watching all of you. You're all happy about March 1, Alert 1. Mas lalo na kami because finally we're here.
Yeah, sure.
How was it today? I mean, was there a taste of it already?
Well, it's too early to tell because today, Tuesday, is usually our slow day. But I'm sure it's building up towards the weekend. We already have a lot of bookings for this Friday to Sunday period. So things are looking up.
So it's this
Pero
weekend
certain
siguro, no?
paalala yung mga yung mga health professionals na baka nga daw magkaroon na naman ng spike. So, I'm sure nagme-maintain pa rin kayo ng certain health safety protocol. Siguro you can take us through your measures in your case.
Opo. Well, our safety protocols have been in place since last year, since 2 years ago. So we're not doing something totally new. We've always been very sanitation conscious, health conscious. And that was even before the vaccines were created for our population. Now that we have more vaccinated people in our country, it feels even safer for us. But of course, we follow all the protocols and requirements by ITF. We have our in-house safety officers. But the difference now po sa alert level 1, of course, we can now dine face-to-face. So if you have a date, it's more romantic na ngayon than having that shield in front of you. Or you don't have to sit diagonally from each other anymore. Also, you can have more parties, no? But we've had increased capacity since February. And as you've seen also, the cases have consistently gone down. So we're cautiously optimistic that things really will be much better coming into the next few months.
Well, sir, in particular kasi yung concern ni Dr. Limpin ng PCP is that hindi na paghandaan ng maigi yung ventilation sa mga establishments and vehicles. Now, I won't ask you about Resto PH kasi mas madali, I suppose, tutukan mo yun. I'd like to ask more about the processes involved here for checking all establishments. I suppose you're familiar with that. Anong proseso pinagdadaanan ng lahat ng establishments, especially restaurants, when it comes to checking ventilation? Is there an SOP? Is there a procedure that we can count on that is reliable and that is not dependent on specific groups or persons?
That's a good question. Previously, we've had the safety seals, which are given by the LGUs, and they will inspect our restaurants if satisfactory ang safety protocols and equipments namin. In our case, our restaurants are located inside the malls, and the air exchange system of the mall is actually quite good. And also, please remember that in the restaurant, there's something called the exhaust system in the kitchen. And if you're in the restaurant, in the dining area, and you don't smell smoke, it's because air is being sucked out. Not just the smoke, but also the fresh air that needs to be in the dining area. So that's constantly at play in the restaurant. Built-in na po yan. For mga independent restaurants po, I would want more review sana about the air exchange rate, but I'm sure everyone has the exhaust system in any kitchen naman.
Okay, what's the situation when it comes to restaurant workers? Are you back on 100% employment capacity as well? Meaning, did you get back your waiters and your chefs and your restaurant staff?
We try to rehire as early as the start of the year when we got hit with Omicron. But we start after the Omicron surge peaked. Around February, we started to rehire again or hire more people. But frankly, there's a labor shortage in the restaurant industry. Because when you close restaurants for 2 years, we're handicapped with a lot of rules. Marami po mga restaurant workers who would rather not work in the restaurant, especially po since transportation is it's daily hell that they have to go through just to get to the restaurants. So now that alert level 1 has, today we have alert level 1 and you have full capacity in the public transportation. We're hopeful that our employees will now find it easier to get back to work.
And what about your delivery? I mean, are you gonna push through with that, or are you gonna scale that down? Nagganon po ba kayo? I'm just wondering what kind of revenue blends will you probably use? Yeah.
We don't want to reduce anything. Whatever we gained before, we just want to keep growing on that. If some restaurants found success in their delivery and takeaway business, I think they would still want to continue for that part of their business to grow. We can't be choosy. We need as much business as we can get. But of course, a restaurant is not a restaurant until you can get someone inside to dine, sit in your chairs, dine at your tables, enjoy the experience and ambiance of that restaurant. So that part, the experiential part, would definitely be improving back to normal, hopefully.
But are there any categories of restaurant that will be laggards or will take a little bit more time? I know, for example, buffets was one of the first na talagang nagbago or outright hindi viable. Not even in terms of not even in terms of the market not being there, but even in terms of just the model and the hygiene, and now the consciousness of people. Are there particular categories that will be have a harder time coming back to how it was before?
Well, I think the restaurants in the CBD area will improve tremendously when people go back to work in the offices. But of course, the one segment that's not yet normal is the back to school crowd. So those carinderias and restaurants that depend on the daily school activities, they would have to wait for the next school year back. But as far as the buffets are concerned, some of my friends in the buffet business are experiencing good business just today. And a lot of parties are already being planned for that.
Meron din yung development in the past 2 years, no? Nag-boom yung e-commerce and including mga bahay-bahay na gumagawa ng all sorts of food. Do you think, are they posing a stiff competition to the brick-and-mortar restaurants? Saka, you think the competition will persist ngayong nag-alert level 1?
Well, competition is healthy, but I don't call them competition negative to the detriment of the restaurant industry. Many of the big restaurants today started out as home kitchen. They started out with their mom's recipes, no? When they served or catered to private parties. So this adversity we have, this adversary we have called COVID, just united a lot of movement towards trying to survive with whatever means we can get, be it home kitchen or catering, or restaurants adjusting or pivoting. That's a very popular word, pivoting to other ways of doing business. So it opened up a lot more interesting and creative way of serving our customers, and that's always a good thing.
Yung mga nag-pivot, you think it will be long-term?
I hope so. I hope all the gains that the restaurant industry or the F&B industry had seen in the last 2 years can still continue to grow because marami pong mga restaurants na nagsara. So we need to refill our ranks with new people, new ideas, new energy. And it's always welcomed in our industry to always have new, especially new food.
And this is
course,
certainly, of
the
course,
opening up of the business is now dampened by the oil price hikes and then the Ukraine-Russia war. How do you think that's going to affect your business in the short term as well as in the long, no? If this goes protracted?
Well, I hope I'm an intelligent person enough to be able to see through that corner. But unfortunately, as what I've been saying to our friends, right now it's a good time to be confused, and that's normal. And it's better to be that kesa sure tayo and we're not asking questions. Right now, it's better for us to not know what we're doing, so we try a lot of new things. Fuel prices will always be, we have to always see that fuel prices or other expenses would always go up. And then we always have to keep up every year with whatever inflation will be out there. We can't rely on a good year in the past thinking that that's going to be the same formula for the future. So we always have to constantly improve our businesses to keep up.
Yeah, but is that also then to say or to safely warn customers to expect na baka nakalimutan niyo na and over the past 2 years, a lot has changed, a lot has been difficult, and the prices will inevitably have changed. I mean, by how much should they be bracing themselves in terms of what to adjust for when they enter these restaurants?
I've had a customer, a friend of ours, who went to a steak restaurant and was shocked that the price went up by 20%. What that friend didn't know was that the cost of that steak almost doubled already. So even at 20%, was absorbed by the operator. We can't just raise our prices. People will stop coming to do that. Yeah, we have to be able to be creative and serve other things so that ma-mitigate po yung inflation po sa mga commodities namin.
So how much more difficult is running a restaurant business these days after the pandemic compared to first the pre-pandemic and then compared to the during the pandemic, yung duration of it? Would you say I don't know, well, were you, of course, the best part was pre, I would imagine, but how much more difficult is it to keep the business afloat?
Well, first, running a restaurant is not the easiest thing to do, even at the best of times. It's one of the most detailed, exhausting, kind of work one can be in. And basically, we do it out of passion. We do it out of love for serving our friends and family. And going through the pandemic, we didn't know how we can survive the first ECQ, let alone survive several months of that, and then a full year without the vaccine. But then once 2021 came around and we saw the light at the end of the tunnel, which is the vaccine, there seemed to be more hope. And at this point, what we tell each other is that if we can get through these last 2 years, we must be doing something right. We've been very resilient. Our association, we try to pool all the best ideas we can. We share best practices. We become friends, and we're each other's best supporters. So I think that Filipino Bayan spirit, that's, we're born to help each other in this sense. That made us carry through that difficult stage. Now it's still difficult, it's still challenging, but it's a lot easier than during the last 2 years. We're very grateful that it's now alert level 1. Things should be a lot better from here on in. And we just thank the public for being patient. And now we hope that they can support us further, seeing us through this recovery.
Okay. Resto PH President Eric Teng. Sir, maraming salamat for joining us tonight at ingat po parati. And good luck.
Thank you, sir.
Maraming salamat po.
Salamat po.
And now joining us is economist Professor Emmanuel Laico. Professor Laico, thank you for joining us and welcome back to Chiefs.
Good evening.
Good evening. And
Good evening, Prof.
good evening.
Hi, sir. Oh, ganda background mo ngayon. Ang tingkad-tingkad.
It's the Zoom background.
It's a Zoom background. Well, sir, of course, we're looking at opening the economy versus, of course, what's been bugging us for the last 2 years, thinking of safety versus the coronavirus. Of course, it's always a gamble. At this particular point, is this a good bet to open the economy at this point to this level, if only to shore up the economy?
I think it is. It's about time. After 2 years, I think it's a welcome development that we are able to open the economy. However, we should always consider the economy is does not operate on a push button mode. You turn it off today, and then when you turn it on tomorrow, everything will be back to normal. No, it's not. And I think, given the discussion earlier, even restaurants will not be able to immediately go back to its full operation. You have to mobilize the people, mobilize the workers, bring
Find
them
new
back,
employees.
and see what kind of work arrangement will be at play here. I think even our transportation sector, earlier, a number of buses are being stopped, a number of vehicles are being stopped because they were exceeding the 100% occupancy. And what does 100% occupancy mean for our buses? That means seating capacity. But even before this pandemic, we have a transportation crisis. Standing. Ang full capacity natin is SRO, no? Pero ngayon, pinapatigil sila. So the transportation sector will have a hard time. And this is all economics. The reason they're allowing standing room only in our buses because the economics of it, the profitability of running transportation operations, that you really have to exceed the seating capacity in order to make money, particularly for our drivers. So while we welcome this development, I think we have to disabuse our minds in saying that once we open, now we have 100%, the economy will be on the road to recovery. It will be eventually, but not tomorrow, not next week. It will take some time. And also, there will be a lot of economic shifts that will happen. The food sector, for almost 2 years, we can't go to the restaurants. So people relied on online ordering of food. So those who were able to establish online food ordering business, they will be displaced once the people start going out and going back to the restaurants. So there will be an economic shift. It's not like the economy will operate 100%, and therefore the economy will expand. No, not necessarily. There will be some who will lose their jobs because of the opening, because people are now going to the restaurants.
But not just the transfer and the shift in business. I want to ask you, Professor Leiko, about the behavior of the consumers themselves, because they are also coming from a prolonged period of reduced, if not lost, income. Ano ba yung mindset nila ngayon? Are they in any mood to actually be spending?
Well, given the developments now, people are still holding back. In fact, yung consumer confidence is not there yet. I don't think people are 100% confident that they can go out, remove their mask when they eat, and not fear getting COVID. COVID is still very much around, and therefore it will take time before the consumers will gain that confidence of going out, removing their mask, and eat without the mask. It will take time. And then in terms of the consumer holding
the buying
back,
capacity. Yeah.
it will take time. Because for 2 years, the economy declined, and that's real. No? When the economy lost trillions of pesos, we lost trillions of purchasing power. So the consumer behavior now is not exactly going on a splurge, spending tomorrow. They will slowly go out, spend some. Not necessarily now they will no longer order. They will go out. It's much more pleasurable to go to the restaurants and eat rather than order food and then consume your food at home. That's not the same as eating in a restaurant. So it will take time. Productivity will not necessarily expand immediately. It will pick up. But I think we have to see more of a gradual movement, gradual development. We can expect some economic shifts happening. People will move from one activity to another. But what is important is that has the consumer purchasing power strengthened or has expanded, and therefore can we now expect more household spending outside? Are people now getting more jobs? Are they getting employed? Are their spending power getting stronger with this opening?
Professor, at this point, what are the biggest risks you are seeing to economic recovery? Kasi tumataas din yung mga presyo ng langis, you have the Ukraine crisis, and public behavior towards health protocols. People are expressing concern about it.
Yes, yeah. Definitely, inflation is a major risk that we need to be able to manage. We have to anticipate. There is a major conflict. There's a major problem happening, not exactly near us, but the impact will be so close to us. You will feel it. We will feel it. Once the full-blown conflict happens. Right now, a number of troops are moving. A number of missiles are being released, shooting down here and there, but it's not exactly the kind of a major conflict that people are fearing, no, that might happen in Ukraine and in Russia. What is happening now is that the players in this conflict are weaponizing the economic instruments, the economic products or economic systems of a globalized economy. So now they are trying to block Russian banks, Russian individuals from the global financial system. And remember, Russia is one of the biggest oil producer in the world. Wheat is a major food input. Ukraine is the biggest producer of wheat. So there might be a commodity disruption. I think people are anticipating that. They'd like to have a continuous flow of commodities. They'd like to have a smooth flow and stable prices. But with the conflict happening now, people are edgy. So while we are opening the economy, people are edgy about increasing prices. Remember, our fuel prices have gone up in the last few months. Even before this conflict, we are seeing increases in prices of fuel in the gasoline station. So now people are already asking, can we increase fare? Can we already start calling for the suspension of the excise tax, value-added tax? Can they now release the fuel subsidy to the our transportation workers? A lot of this are already hanging over our heads. Even the president is already calling for an emergency meeting to make sure that we will be able to address this. But I think the people will have to be secure, or they will have to be assured. Are we going to see prices shooting over our heads? We don't want to see missiles shooting over our heads, but we don't want to see certainly prices going haywire.
But in the meantime, Professor, a lot of this is external to us. What options do we actually have? What options does government actually have to sort of cushion the blow?
Oh, certainly, there's very little we can do with the prices of the global prices of fuel outside our country. But certainly, in our country, we can do quite a bit. Value-added tax is a major factor in our prices. The excise tax is certainly a major issue that they can increase the prices. So these are add-on factors to the prices of fuel. So once we endanger or we weaken the purchasing power of our consumers, I think you can expect the recovery of our economy to slow down and even go back to where we were during the onslaught of this pandemic.
But sir,
certainly we can do something.
But sir, these proposals come with trade-offs. For example, if you slice the excise taxes completely off oil products, you're looking at 119 billion pesos in lost revenues per year. And those are revenues that could go to social services, pandemic response, and so on down the line. So it's always a balancing act. How do we do that?
You know, annually we see unspent budget of the government, something like 300 billion pesos. So we can handle that with more efficiency. You have money. We have money. The money is not the problem. I think the efficient spending, the efficient operation of government is an issue. So we lose some money, we lose some revenues from a value-added tax or the excise tax, but I think we can recover that from being more efficient as a government.
Okay, setting aside the Ukraine crisis, just focusing on the fact that we're now loosening up and opening up, can you tell us, for example, which industries would you consider the greatest gainers here? Which ones would advance the most at this point, and which ones would have to wait a while, or who will lag behind for the moment?
Well, certainly the financial system can recover immediately. They were able to adjust quite well. People in the financial sector were able to work from home. Our banks are able to adjust.
Yes.
I don't think they will be affected. In fact, productivity in the financial sector can be expected. However, coming from education, I must share this with you. 2 years, our students were out of school, outside the classrooms. They were learning skills, technical know-how. For example, this year we are going to graduate quite a few hundred from our school, hundreds of graduates that will include engineers, architects, nurses, doctors. We're not so concerned about, say, for example, accountants, but we're concerned about technical disciplines. You know, the questions we just had our faculty deliberation to consider graduates, and the question I asked was, our new engineering graduates, are we sure that they will graduate and able to build structures that will not collapse? That was my practical concern. You know, I'm quite familiar with some of the subjects that they teach or that they take. For example, strength of materials. Strength of materials, you have to see it. You have to be able to experiment. You have to be able to see how they work in a laboratory. But during the last 2 years, they did not have lab classes. No? They need to have substitutes. No, they had virtual laboratories, but I don't think that is the same. So I am quite concerned. Are we generating graduates who will be as proficient as our graduates before the pandemic? And that's just engineering, no? But that's major.
It's a good question, Prof. But we'll throw it back to you as somebody plugged in with a number of universities. I have spoken with some people in some universities, and they are saying that, you know, we might have to graduate people without that laboratory or without that field experience. But to sort of compensate for that, we're already planning for some, I don't know what they call it, but after you graduate, you can still come back, take some units, audit some courses, and so on, and somehow make back that practical experience. I guess my question is, as far as you're aware, how are universities and courses going to compensate for this precise concern that you're raising?
Many universities have shifted to virtual laboratories because we could not bring our students back. So we resorted to virtual laboratories, virtual classrooms. But over at our school, no, it's not enough. So what we are going to do is, we're glad that there is this opening. We are going to bring our senior students back before they graduate, because once you issue them the diploma, they're not coming back. So before they get their degrees, we're going to bring them back to school and open our laboratories. So it may not be enough. It's a shortened period, but certainly we will be able to have some level of comfort.
But it essentially delays
but
their
will they
graduation.
have to re-enroll, or you will make it part of the graduation requirements?
No, the graduation is coming up in the next few months. So before graduation, we are going to bring them back.
Okay.
But certainly, I'm not quite confident that they will have enough time to compensate for the lost 2 years. Remember, uh, uh, 2 years is a lot, no? We've been suspending classes. We were having academic breaks. When we are experiencing a slowdown with our internet connections because of the typhoon, we also call off classes. Even online classes are being called off.
Yeah.
So I am quite concerned that this batch of graduates may have to do more. And I think that's where our counterparts in the private sector may come in. When
They
you
have to
bring
learn
in,
on the job,
they
I
will
think.
have to learn, definitely.
Yes. Yeah.
Definitely. There should be a bridging program. No, and I think I'm quite confident that the private sector is aware of that. No, not so much in the business sector, but in the technical skills. No, architecture, engineering, uh, physics, chemistry, and all of that. You know, we were doing virtual experiments. No. And then the interaction between the faculty and the students definitely suffered. And even before this pandemic, our education sector is already going through a crisis that was only exacerbated by this pandemic. So that is a major cause for concern that during this pandemic, how are we going to manage re-entry, recovery? How are we going to reintroduce the skills and also deal with the changed nature of work? The offices have changed. So how are our new graduates, the new employees, the workforce that will join, or the graduates who will join the workforce this year, how are they going to be integrated within the new business, the new economy? We're not going back to the old. We can learn a lot now from what we have done. I think even schools, for example, we are already planning to retain some of our courses online, but certainly those that are requiring direct interaction with the faculty, direct interaction with other students, and direct or hands-on experience, in laboratories that you can only get through a laboratory experience. We need to get that. So the planning is not just allowing 100% capacity. No, it's not. We have to rethink how we are going to do things in the workplace, in the learning space. How are we going to teach? How are we going to relearn old skills? How are we going to reinvent these things? And how are we going to put them together so that we have one nice, smooth economic system again, with all of these developments happening?
Okay. Professor Leco brings up so many good questions. The next time we have him, he will have all the answers. Professor Leco, we thank you. And of course, certainly you've made the point that we will have to devote a lot more episodes to discussing this new normal and how everybody adjusts. In the meantime, maraming salamat po, Professor Leco.
Yes, sir.
Maraming
sir.
salamat. Maraming salamat po sa inyong
Professor
lahat.
Emmanuel
Magandang gabi.
Leco. Please stay with us. The Chiefs will be right back.
Welcome back to the Chiefs here on One News. And now joining us is Undersecretary Ireneo Bismonte of the Department of Trade and Industry. Good evening, sir, and welcome back to the Chiefs.
Good evening po.
Good evening po.
Sir, nakamute kayo, sir.
Good evening po.
Ayun. Okay. Sir.
Chiefs. Good
Yes, sir.
evening, Chiefs.
Sir, una-una po, day 1 ng alert level 1, kamusta po ang inyong monitoring? Gaano karami o gaano kasagana ang businesses today?
Of course, we're not yet there, but we're gearing up towards what we want and where to get there, and where to get to. So, first day, of course, everyone is excited. This is the first time that we're going to have this after 2 years, 100% operating capacity for all businesses, including government offices. Even in government offices, we noticed that most of the workers are already reported today. And obviously, we have the traffic in Metro Manila.
Yes, sir. Pero sir, zoom in lang sir tayo doon sa businesses po. Anong monitoring natin sa businesses?
We saw, of course, the number of those visiting the businesses establishment, particularly yung mga kumakain po, yung mga for quite a while they are operating at less than 100%. They are operating actually between 50 to 70%. And I think March 1 is a very good day for them, as we saw it.
Tuloy pa din po ba yung safety seal ninyo para sa mga establishments? Kasi nag-aalala ang mga tao na baka daw mawala na yung mga compliance with safety protocols.
Yeah, the safety seal program is actually a voluntary program, and it will continue to be a voluntary program where businesses or those establishments applying for this will be given the safety seal as a proof that their establishment is following the health protocols. Tutuloy-tuloy lang po siya.
How much do you think will this Ukraine war and the rising fuel prices will derail the economic recovery that we had been waiting for with the end of the pandemic, where we slowed down considerably, and by how much?
Maybe the effect will be minimal compared to the 2-year pandemic. As you see, the trade between Russia and Ukraine and the Philippine trade basically is around less than 0.5%. So the effect in terms of trading is minimal. But of course, we know that for 2 months or quite a while, petroleum prices have been increasing, but not necessarily because of the war. But we know also that the effect of prices is not so significant as far as consumer goods is concerned, or particularly the basic necessities that DTI is monitoring.
Sir, before we get to the point, atras lang ako ng konti. I want to back up a bit. Before we get to a discussion of, targets natin or yung goals natin in the future, maybe let's set some baselines for now. I mean, at the end of Alert Level 2, and as we start Alert Level 1, where are we right now in terms of the number of businesses that we're actually trying to get back online?
Actually, before at Alert Level 2, we have already so many businesses already open. The essential businesses, the groceries, groceries, even restaurants, they're already open. So most of them are already open. And particularly manufacturing and essential services are operating at 100%. So ang naiiwan po talaga malaki is the tourism sector because of the restrictions in travel. But with the lifting of the quarantine rules, and we hope that tourism will definitely rebound in the next months or so.
What do you see? Yeah, go ahead.
Parang iba-iba sinasabi ng impact sa, in particular sa wheat. And well, nakikita na natin yung impact sa petroleum products, of course. But yung sa wheat, maapektuhan daw yung bread, yung noodles. Yeah. Ano ba talaga yung trade natin with Russia when it comes to wheat that is used for flour?
That's true that we import wheat from Ukraine, but most of our wheat are coming from the United States, Canada, and Australia. So again, What is important is we keep the supply of these items at high level so that we can maintain that level of supply and demand so that prices will not go up. And at this point, it's too early to say, considering that we have that inventory, not only of the raw materials, but also of the finished products.
Pero sir, already yung mga canned goods, for example, tumaas na ang presyo by as much as 3 pesos. No? I mean, that's not small. And we imagine that many others will follow suit. And your recommended retail price will probably not be followed because of the fuel price increases it's being felt everywhere. No, what do you think would the effect of that be on the economy in general and on individual consumption? And as far as businesses are concerned, how will that set that back and set them back, and by how much?
So far, at this point, the manufacturers have not requested an increase in the suggested retail price. So, but we know that if this problem will be longer, and we hope not, baka naman po hindi ganun kabigat yung problema natin as far as basic commodities is concerned. Considering that, again, the component of the petroleum in the total price is around 3 to 5% only.
Sir,
What
something...
MSMEs, how are they doing? I mean, how much of that will probably be restored and how soon? Kasi ang daming nagsara during the pandemic. Do you think they'll be able to get back into business? How many of them actually declared bankruptcy and so we've written them off, kumbaga, and how many of them are still hoping to be able to recoup whatever losses they may have incurred?
Actually, we know that there are some establishments that closed during the pandemic, and maybe around, I think we have this survey that around 5%. Surprisingly, the number of establishments that registered in 2021 is around 2.3 million compared to 1.7 million in 2019 or 2020. So there are more, maybe because of the businesses related to e-commerce. More businesses look for an opportunity to shift from one business to another, to keep their livelihood going.
I was going to ask about that kasi kanina nabanggit din ni Ami yan. I mean, particularly sa food, we can all imagine that yung mga nag-shift sa delivery, mga home kitchen, and so on. So what you're saying is we actually on all sides actually did a good job. That was actually captured by the DTI. People actually registered themselves as proper businesses. That's what you're saying.
Yes, correct. And in fact, our data for the third and fourth quarter in 2021 shows that we have somehow recovered at a relatively higher growth rate compared to the previous quarters. And hopefully that for the next quarters or for this year, we'll be able to really recover what we lost for the last 2 years.
What about yung impact ng petroleum prices sa power, for example, and manufacturing consequently? Are you expecting long-term impact or mabigat na impact?
This problem of petroleum is something that is not new. It's something that is recurring from time to time. That's why government or we are really inviting investments in renewable energy and other alternative means to what we have right now. But definitely, it will impact in our manufacturing and in logistics. So this is something that is global, so we cannot really somehow easily resolve. That's why we're looking for alternatives.
Well, Professor Leco brought up an interesting point a while ago when he said that when the economy opens, of course, there will be businesses that will flourish. But at the same time, there will be some businesses and possibly some employees who might have to close shop because of the shift. Magbabago na naman yung behavior ng mga tao, maglilipatan siguro sa mga dating traditional na mga negosyo. Have you considered this, and have you identified, for example, what sectors or what businesses may be in danger of this shift to a reopening?
Of course, it's not because of the pandemic, but maybe because of e-commerce or the digital. So maybe those are businesses like the printing press. They may be, later on may not be that profitable. But in
Pero sir,
general, we
for
know
example,
that
sir, just as an example, for example, di ba, ngayon kasi ang daming umasa sa deliveries. Pag nagbukas ang mga negosyo ulit at mga restaurant, baka, I suppose, baka lang mabawasan yung mga nagpapadeliver ng pagkain. And there goes all your people who are now relying on Grab and all these other delivery services for their livelihood.
Yeah, correct po. But we expect that for the last 2 years, we'll get used to it, and it's something that I think will be there for a while. Maybe it will decrease as we move on. But with the opening of the tourism, those who are affected by the tourism sector who move to logistics like the transport sector will now get back and go back to their old business that is related to tourism.
About work setups, do you think that the work from home setup, for example, will now be a regular mode of work or employment for many companies? Do you foresee companies actually implementing that kind of mix now of on-site and work from home, or schedules probably moving toward that more for the employees?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. We can see that there is that option now for them, considering, of course, the traffic and all other expenses related to going to office. I think there is value in considering work from home. For some industries, that's something that is already being practiced in BPO and some other admin or legal services. These are, I think, will be something that we can see in the near future, growing the work from home arrangement.
Okay. Pero pagka sinabi po na yung mga news anchor kailangan pumasok na sa studio, ano na yun, di ba? Yun na dapat pumapasok na yung mga news, yung mga news
Maganda na
anchor.
nga ito. Ganda na ng setup na ganito, di ba?
Correct.
Gaya nga ng sinasabi ni Yuse kanina, parang delivery yan. Totoo naman kahit naman pwede ka na kumain sa restaurant, nakakawili naman talaga yung mga ibang aspetong pwede mo na lang ipa-deliver, di ba?
Oo, rin, talaga.
But of course,
Pero antayin lang natin yung memo,
But of course, we want everyone to, we are promoting consumer spending. That will really help our economy recovers. And we go out and, spend some of our earnings so that we can help in moving our economy.
Pwede pa naman, sir, kasi sa studio bawal kumain eh. Sa bahay, pag naka-Zoom, pwede pa rin kumain. So, humabol pa talaga eh.
Pwede magpadeliver sa bahay.
Okay.
Saka sa restaurant, pwede na ho talaga tayong kumain ng 100% capacity dahil ang requirement lang naman, kailangan vaccinated lahat ng papasok eh.
Ayun. Okay. Well, Undersecretary Vismonte, maraming salamat po.
Thank you.
Maraming salamat din
Thank you,
po.
sir.
Salamat, sir.
That was Undersecretary Irene Vismonte of the Department of Trade and Industry. And that's all for this edition of the Chiefs. We hope it was discussed. We'll keep the conversation going. Before we go, a reminder to our viewers, mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
I'm Ami Paminton of the Philippine Star.
I'm Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5.
I'm Ed Lingao, and we are One News.
Hindi na yan, no? Yung dalawang linya. Sabi mo, baka tumalon sa akin, umaakit sa akin eh. Tapos hinila-hila to wasak na yung sakit ko. Yung